Soon and very soon, we are going to see the horse. Soon and very soon, we are going to eat the curry. Soon and very soon, we are going to see the horse. Uyabuya, 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 Mkhwanazi. Welcome, welcome, welcome to another episode of The Dissection. Today was long anticipated. Long anticipated. We have been hearing the name of Vusi Matlala, the so-called cat, the so-called John Wick of Mamelodi. It was his time on the stand, and it almost didn't happen because at some point his lawyers were trying to interdict this whole thing from happening. And most of last night, there was speculation whether or not today the visit of this ad hoc committee to Kgosi Mampuru prison would actually yield fruit, because Parliament left its chamber to go and speak to this notorious criminal and get his side of the story as it pertains to the allegations which exploded onto the scene on the 6th of July. So let's have a discussion and I'll give you my impressions about today. So Vusi Matlala came dressed in Burberry from head to toe. The shoes, the shirt, the trousers, everything was very, very fresh, very, very crisp, and very, very expensive. From what I was able to ascertain on the Googles, on the internet, his shirt cost about 12,000 Rand. His shoes cost about 12,000 Rands. His trousers, I was not able to ascertain whether it's a Burberry, but I'll assume because he was wearing Burberry shirt, Burberry shoes, Burberry everything. Somebody said his specs are also very expensive. So I'm estimating that his wardrobe is between 30,000 Rands and 50,000 Rands. This man is balling. He's out of control balling. He is flaunting his wealth in front of South Africa. And there's some people who are impressed by that, but I was genuinely concerned about that because we know the source of this wealth. We know that people have died raising issues and flagging the source of this wealth, Babita Deokaran being one of them. So I, for one, was not impressed. I'm never impressed by Hoshkari behavior, and any proceeds of Hoshkariness to me, I look down on. I look down on them with the disdain that I think they deserve. Having discussed the wardrobe, it's only important because unlike members of parliament who I think do make their money honestly, and I don't think we should be checking what shoes this politician is wearing, what shoes that person is wearing, but I do think it is relevant for us to look at the lifestyle of people who are implicated in this type of criminal behavior to understand where's the money going. There are Hoshkari mamas, there are blue cars, Lamborghinis, whatever it may be. We need to have an understanding of the proceeds of that criminality. Now, the second thing I want to mention, and if we didn't know the facts about this man, if we were not clued up about everything this man is implicated in and everything that he has done, we would actually think he's not a dangerous guy. He looks like a regular guy. That's the whole thing about Katiso Molefe. Even if you see Hangwani, they don't look like criminals. Whatever mindset we may have of criminality and criminals, they don't look the part. They look like regular Joes. They don't look like those chaps who walk holding one hand behind their back, when they come across the road in certain neighborhoods and say, hey, we're the son. And, and then whatever happens. They don't look like that. These are sophisticated criminals. And I think we should keep that in mind as we engage with everything that they say, everything that they do. If you think about Stuart James Sharnick, very polished guy, you would never think he has multiple cases related to car hijacking, selling of stolen vehicles, nothing. You would never think that he's such a gun-toting, gun-loving individual who is implicated in a variety of activities in Richards Bay. You would think that he is just a buff guy, but a well-articulated, regular guy, a businessman, if you will. And maybe this is what journalists, some of them who were calling these guys businessmen, fell into. I just thought it was something that is worth mentioning. Now, let's talk about strategy. I was curious, and I'm sure you were too. Are we going to get Nkabinde or are we going to get Mkhwanazi? And we got a version of Mkhwanazi, and I'll explain why. But I was curious. He was cagey. He was obstructionist. He was trying to play various games. In the morning, you could tell he was giving very short answers. He wasn't elaborating.
tell us about Msibi. Sibi was my client, full stop. The evidence leader had to lead him a bit more. I think he could have done a better job of actually getting him to discuss various averments, various parts of his statement. But you could tell he's being cagey, he's being evasive. He's trying to say, well, this may incriminate me. Please, can I get clarification, protection, etc.? Even though in the oath and in the explanation from the chairperson, all of that was already determined. The reason why I'm saying he was a version of Brown Mkhwanazi, because at some point, we saw that Nkabinde decided he's not going down with the ship. He's not going down with the ship. But it looks to me that Vusi Matlala right now is actually trying to go down with the ship, or to protect his crew and to try to pull another fast one. Why am I saying this? Towards the end of the day, it seemed that he was more keen on attacking and burying Bheki Cele as opposed to Sibiya or any of the people around him. In fact, he multiple times denied that he knows Sibiya or knew Sibiya prior to the time when he sent him an email, and from that email got a meeting. What a lucky guy, yeah? One email to Sibiya, you get a meeting. Civilians are always complaining about crime, kidnapping, rapes, serious and violent crime, all of the things that fall into his desk. I don't think any of them got a meeting. But you, my man, you, the cat, you got a meeting. You're a lucky cat. You're a lucky meow meow. You're a lucky chap. Anyway, having discussed the strategy, one of the things I felt throughout the morning in particular was that the evidence leader, Andrese, was missing opportunities. I think he fumbled the bag, he dropped the bag, and he missed a lot of opportunities. I'm going to give you my explanation as to why I'm saying that now. Now, Vusi Matlala, for example, said that he was in the business of medical. In fact, let me not start there. Let me not be disorganized. So, missed opportunity number one was that, as you lead evidence of a witness, you discuss the background, right? So Vusi says, I'm from Mamelodi East. I grew up here, single mom. I went to this high school. I was selling things, and then I ended up buying illegal things, accidentally got arrested. And then I was, out early because of a program. And then for the next 17 years, I was just selling. And then in 2017, I then get into a business, registering my first formal business. That's what he says. Now, there are certain opportunities that I think were missed there. The first was the failure to discuss the criminal background, the controversial criminal background of this man. Because from the year 2000 up until 2025, there are a variety of cases that were withdrawn. There were a variety of cases that just needed more clarification and explanation. House robbery, possession of stolen goods, possession of house-breaking equipment. Vusi Matlala, from the number of cases withdrawn, definitely seemed that he spent the 17 years that he was talking about not selling and buying goods and services or things that he got secondhand or whatever, but actually involved in a bunch of criminality. Think about this. He's got about 18 cases withdrawn. If you have 18 cases withdrawn, how much more actually have you done where the cops were not able to apprehend you, if you think about it thoroughly? So I thought that was a missed opportunity from the evidence leader. The second missed opportunity was that entry into business section. We already know, and I've shown you this, and I'll show it to you again now. We already know that his entry into formal business was an important part of a lot of what has been happening in the healthcare system and leading up to the events that we're talking about now. 2017 is when CAT VIP was registered. This is the same company which was registered with Hangwani Maumela, right? So I would have asked him how he met Hangwani Maumela, how they came to register the company together, how they entered into business together. It's important because these two men went on to get lots of tenders at Tembisa Hospital, and Matlala was using Black AK trading in Tembisa Hospital. Hangwani was using a lot of other, entities to get those particular tenders. And in addition, one of the missed areas of examination that then could have followed from there, Vusi Matlala said that he was in the business of doing medical supplies to hospitals. He said, Department of Health would send requests for quotations. His company then got onto the central supplier database. He registers his company in 2017, gets onto the central database relatively fast, right? And then automatically his company starts getting chosen for supplying to Tembisa Hospital. Come on, think about this. He explained that the Department of Health sent out requests for quotations. Then they would randomly choose a vendor on that CSD, the Central Supplier Database. That part was a missed opportunity for me because it is central to the modus operandi of those guys at Tembisa Hospital. They were avoiding the regular tender system, only chasing certain tenders which were coming in, or these requests for quotations which were below certain thresholds. And that way they were avoiding getting over the radar. Then this idea that he was just so lucky that his company kept being chosen and Hangwani's company kept being chosen is one which needs exploration, because I don't think anybody is that lucky. There are a large number of companies on that database. Many people don't get chosen. So when one person consistently gets chosen, delivering goods that are overly inflated, water bottles, etc., I would have asked him, how much was the water that you were selling? How much were you buying it for? That would have been a question that I would have asked him, right? Here's what we know from the reporting from Jeff Weeks. Hangwani Maumela was consistently seen at the Tembisa Hospital in the supply chain offices. And that is how his companies kept getting selected. You cannot get selected without political connections, without political muscle, without political weight. His role in this whole syndicate and in this cartel has been to be an enforcer. This is Matlala. But his ability to get these types of selections for the request for quotations are because he was in the Maumela nexus. So there are two opportunities here to link him to Maumela, to expand the conversation around Maumela and actually get to the bottom of some of this stuff. I felt those balls were totally dropped. I felt like Andrese SC did not bring his A game, and especially in the morning session. Today, actually, I think in retrospect, I would have hoped for Advocate Zikalala. I was happy with how she handled Fani. I was happy with how she interviewed the general from the CFO yesterday. I think she does a good job. She's efficient. She's lean. She gets to the bottom of everything. She also is very responsive as and when some of the people raise issues. I think Andresa is a little bit tired. I think, he's been doing this for a long time. Obviously, he wanted this. This is the big witness. This is the big moment. I'm not sure that today was an A-game performance from him. I don't know, what do you think about that? But let's talk about it in the comment section. Just that my interpretation of what he's saying. Now, there were some gaps in Vusi Matlala's version of events. And before we talk about the gaps, please check if you subscribed. Because if you're not subscribed, that's hoshkari behavior. This channel is dedicated to making your life easier. If you miss certain elements, we'll be here summarizing for you. If you want to think about everything that's happened, we'll be here thinking about it with you. And we are really trying to help the nation, help the continent, help the world understand this moment. And we think that's worthy of support. It's free 99. Free 99 till 3029. It's 100 years plus 5. Yeah, plus 4. 104 years. So subscribe. It's mahala. Free 99. Let's go on. There were gaps in the story. Brown, that explanation that he gave us about Brown is one that I thought was not adding up, if I'm quite honest. Let me go further. Let me go deeper. Go deeper, papa. Go deeper, papa. Let me go deeper. He says Brown called him out of the blue and said that they were hearing about the problems that he was facing and he was sent by the minister. In a sense, there he was basically throwing the minister under the bus a little bit. Then he says he kept Brown close because he wanted to keep Brown in the loop and trap him so that he could help Bheki Cele. And this is a version of the same argument that Brown Mkhwanazi made in the Madlaga Commission. Brown says, I was keeping Vusi close to me, telling him that I'm close to the minister so that I could get to the bottom of what he was doing. So this side, Brown is keeping Vusi close for these reasons. And that side, Vusi is keeping Brown close to help Cele. The other one is helping Sibiya, and the other one is helping... Who's fooling who? I don't buy any of these versions. It sounds scripted, sounds like something that came out of somebody's office. These fantastical versions, no. He did admit to giving money to Brown Mkhwanazi. Then he says very explosively that he gave Bheki 500,000 rands. And then he says, I withdrew the money in cash, gave him in cash. Now, there's no proof of that. There's no way that we're going to be able to corroborate whether or not that happened. So, in as much as I don't think we got a lot of value from the Matlala testimony in some respects, I do think we still got some information. We got information on Msibi. We got information, if you're reading between the lines and using what we already know from other testimonies in the ad hoc committee as well as in the Madlanga Commission. We know, for instance, that the issue of the rental of the hospital 6 months in advance of the tender being issued, that is not adding up. General Fani could not explain it well. That's something that still needs to be explained. I think Vusi Matlala is straight up lying about that. And that issue could take us even deeper because there were questions about Benjani Chauke asked and whether he knows General Fani and whether or not he was set up into that particular office to help them get tenders from the South African Police Service. And if you look at the timing, the coincidence is just too much of a coincidence that he then pursues this hospital that he says he wanted to rent for 3 years prior. He's been looking for it for 3 years, but then finally got it just 6 months before the need, as General Fani described it, then shows up, and then he gets awarded a tender. And his tender story also is not adding up because he says, look, I had this franchise deal. The use of a third-party contractor is not necessarily allowed in tender processes. It has to be you. You have to be the one providing the services. And we already heard that when the audit was done internally in SAPS, that this tender should not have been approved. So his story about that, no, I had a third party, there's Medicare Tswane, and then there's Medicare, the real one. All of this is not adding up. The other detail that we got that was interesting was around this what is it called? Ride and Pay company, because that company has already been profiled by Carte Blanche as a scam, and they were scamming people, making them apply to buy cars and then renting those cars out to other people. And apparently those are the vehicles which ended up being used in part by Vusi Matlala and his wife for the blue lights that ended up going to Julius Mkhwanazi, who is now going to testify next week. Basically everything that was supposed to happen in the commission today didn't happen. They all came there with stories. Sinona had stories, and Mkhwanazi apparently has asked for more time. But even if they try to delay, we've still got a bit of December coming up. So we'll get to the bottom of some of these stories. Julius Mkhwanazi, Brigadier Julius Mkhwanazi, I call him Julius Foulius. We're going to hear from him. Julius Foulius Dubious Mkhwanazi, we're going to hear from him, I think, on Monday. But Vusi Matlala is not going to be able to escape answering a lot of the elements that pertain to some of those connections. Then the other dot that we can connect clearly is that he says he went to ask Sibiya for help when Sibiya was not the acting national commissioner. He says at some point he was the acting national commissioner, and then he remembers that the timelines are wrong. Then he says, well, he was head of detectives, so I asked him to investigate why there are doctors there. But then how did you get access to Sibiya? What would the head of detectives have to do with giving you access to the clinic? That part of the story is not adding up. He was in conversations with him in 2024, early in 2024. So Sibiya said he was aware of him. Everybody knows him. He says that was the first time he was conversating with him. That story also is not adding up. So, but we then get from there that certain people will have more explanations. The challenge that Sibiya is going to face is that he still has to go to the commission. And we know Advocate Chaskalson will watch and reference stuff that happens in the ad hoc committee. He did the same to Brown. He used information from TV interviews as well as other information that existed. So he's going to bring this up, and he's not going to necessarily be able to circle these contradictions unless he throws Vusi Matlala under the bus. So I actually think that Vusi Matlala Wetsamanyala may not be aware of everything because of being in solitary confinement, where he'd not be able to access his phone that he's been using in prison. He did seem to be aware of some things that I was like, how do you know that? Were you watching? Who's been telling you? There's no way that you would know that in prison. But he doesn't seem to be aware of everything. And, because he's not aware, or maybe because he's not able to follow everything, he's not able to close some of the gaps. Because following the commission and following the ad hoc committee, these are very time-intensive processes. Like sometimes I have to wake up at 2 a.m., at 3 a.m. to try to catch up with stuff that I missed. and try to revise my notes, etc. So if he's in solitary confinement, doesn't have devices, he may not be aware of everything that we know. For instance, we saw the messages between him and Brown Mkhwanazi and the discussions that they had about setting up members of the GCI orbs, how this Tsakani was not willing to set up a false assault case. We saw a lot of that discussion where he was asking for help between the 20th and the 31st and conversations that Brown was having with him. So even though he can admit to the payments and stuff, he may not be privy to that. We know everything you've been discussing with Kelvin Rafadi and a bunch of other people. We know more than you may know about what we know. And so when you tell stories to the public, we can spot some of these gaps. We've also heard the voice notes, right? Because he says, I don't know Sibiya, I just met him in that meeting. But the voice notes where he was saying he gave large amounts of money to General Sibiya, bought him Impalas, bought his son, gave his son 300,000. He called Sibiya a criminal. And when he said Sibiya is a criminal, it's almost like he was like, you guys are coming for me. But General Sibiya is also with me. Why am I on the hot seat when I'm not the only criminal in this criminality? We already know some of these chats, and I don't know whether he knows that we know, or maybe he doesn't know that we know that he doesn't know. Whatever the case may be, there are many gaps in what he has been saying. So tomorrow he'll continue with his testimony. They have him till Friday. Perhaps Andretse will finish tomorrow, and maybe he'll be sharper in the cross-examination part towards the end, and members of parliament will then be able to probe some of these gaps, some of these inconsistencies. I joked a little bit that, maybe Honorable Souls will ask him about the harassment and say, did you feel harassed? Do you feel that the PKTT it needs to be dissolved? I don't know where it's going to go. But obviously, seeing how Honorable Souls deals with it will be interesting. Just little beer drinking game. So we can play some beer pong. Whenever he asks a friendly question, just take a shot of even your Coca-Cola, even if you don't drink alcohol. So it'll be interesting to see how everyone deals with this. I thought the debate around the draft statement, whether versus the sworn statement, I don't think it was a big issue. And I would have dropped that whole conversation much earlier altogether. I felt that Nomvalo pushed it way further than he needed to. Oral testimony is testimony. All of this is on record. He's under oath now. The dynamics are such that they are. I would have hated to wait half a day or wait till tomorrow to then start listening to this particular individual, because we don't know all the dynamics behind the prison doors. It's a very peculiar and strange moment. And as such, I think it was important to get him on the record. So, as things stand, in as much as there were some light-hearted moments, and as much as that the committee is trying to make him relaxed so that he can say as much as possible and make him feel that they believe him. They do that sometimes. They encourage a witness, and they want to get as much out of the witness as possible. I think we must just remember that this guy is a dangerous and sophisticated criminal who's been operating with very dangerous and sophisticated criminals in a network which is a cartel. So I do not take his evidence or testimony today as being truthful or revelatory. I take it as being a bunch of lies with strands of truth. And I think we have to sift through what he's saying very carefully and never forget for a second that this cat is not the household variety cat. This could be a tiger. This could be a leopard. It's not a homebred cat. This is a wild cat, a very dangerous cat. And he's on trial for attempted murder. He's on trial for attempted murder of his girlfriend, ex-girlfriend, and of Josie Banoni, one of the leaders in the taxi industry. He seems to have a lot of connections in the taxi industry. Oh yeah, there's something else I wanted to say before I forget and before we close this off. He said Cat VIP was just dealing with 4 schools and 1 VIP customer. That's what the young people call cap. He is lying. He's lying. There's no way you set up that website, all of that infrastructure, get all of those guns to merely provide protection from CB, and that's it. I don't think that he's telling the truth. I think that he was hiding a lot more of the people that he was working with because he doesn't want those people or protecting to then be called. Because if there are people within the taxi industry, we may then end up unraveling things that maybe he's not prepared to unravel, or maybe where he knows that even the gates and walls of prison will not protect him. If indeed Cat VIP was only doing 4 companies and only 1 VIP, why did they delete their website? You know that website has been scrubbed. You can't even find it on the Wayback Machine. You can't find any traces of the website. That is the behavior of people who are hiding hoshkari behavior, hoshkari activities. Those are shenanigans of the highest level. And I don't think that he was truthful even in that answer. I don't know, guys, what did you make of everything that happened today? Was it everything we expected, or are you waiting to see what happens tomorrow? What did you think of the different questions asked by the members of parliament, etc.? Let's meet in the comment section, because soon and very soon we are going to see the horse. Soon and very soon we are going to eat the curry.